What is happening, y'all? Welcome on back, and in this episode it is time to start off and explain Chalice Dungeons. Now, Chalice Dungeons were not all that well received. Some people liked them, some people hated them, but basically they are additional content outside of the story content of the game. A couple of them are set in stone, but there is also a randomized element. So in a sense, it was almost like a roguelike experience for Bloodborne, but it ended up ultimately kind of falling flat. Regardless, we are going to be going here to the altar, hit Chalice Ritual, and this is the chalice we picked up by the Bloodstarved Beast, and hit Conduct Ritual and create it. Now, so the way these Chalice Dungeons work is you have to get mats either in the world, Bloodborne itself, or in the Chalice Dungeons to open up a new Chalice Dungeon. And then you jump in at the Chamber of the Seal, you go down 3 to 4 different layers, and then you fight a boss, and then you typically get a new chalice as a reward, and can open up the next tier. Now, for the sake of getting your Platinum Trophy, you're going to need to go through a lot of Chalice Dungeons. In particular, we have Pthumeru Chalice, which is what we're in now, and then there's Central Pthumeru Chalice, and then Lower Pthumeru Chalice, and then Ailing Lauren, and then Defiled Chalice, and then Great Pthumeru Ithil. And at the very end of Great Pthumeru Ithil, you have the final boss, the Yharnam Pthumeru Queen, basically the lady we saw kind of right after Ram, and defeating her gets you one of your final trophies. Now, to do all of this, it's going to take you 10 to 15 hours, because it's not as straightforward as just opening up the chalice and getting it done. There's actually a lot of farming you have to do. You'll go into a chalice and you might need to get materials in that chalice, or you're going to need to hop into a side chalice like the Hinterland tombs or something, because there may be certain enemies that you need to kill or certain items that you need to open your chalice. Anyway, head on over this way. We're going to be really speed running through these chalices, because the first couple too, this one you could have come and done this as early as Bloodstarved Beast. So everything that we fight here is going to feel really, really easy. We're basically going to one-shot most enemies. Like that. But go on up, you see that Bell Lady? There's Bell Ladies are a common theme in the chalices, and they'll summon up units, kind of how you just saw right there. By killing the Bell Ladies, the summons will stop being summoned. And each chalice typically follows a flow. There's usually a Bell Lady somewhere summoning stuff. And then there's usually some big guy like this guy that's guarding a gear mechanism, which is this thing. And when you hit the gear mechanism, you unlock the door and you can leave the chalice. So that's the basic gist. As you dive into the chalice, you find that guy. Usually somewhere in the chalice, there's also going to be a treasure chest that you may be able to get that has either bonus chalice materials or usually consumables, something like, fire paper or blood vials or bullets, maybe some beast blood stuff. So, a bunch of different stuff. Let's drop down here to exit. The bagmen, they always have a chance to drop chalice materials, so there we go. Some ritual blood too. I always kill them when I can. If we go this way, this will lead us into a little side room that has loot, but nothing really of value here, So, let me just... I am the exterminator. Out of my way. And there's nothing in here that we need, but there's going to be a lot of little things. We got some spare tomb mold, we got blood vials, we got quicksilver bullets. Over here we got some Molotovs. So it's a lot of consumable type stuff. Usually in every chalice there's also a fake wall somewhere. I'll be honest, I don't even bother recording where the fake walls are because they're all over the place. There's like one per, I believe it's one per full dungeon. So in the 3 layers of the Pthumeru that we're in right now, somewhere there's a fake wall. But anyway, so it's going to take you roughly 10 to 15 hours to go through all of this the legit way to get your trophy. Now, personally speaking, I've done it once. I never want to have to do it again. I don't want to have to do it for this walkthrough series because, as many of you know, we take meticulous notes. So despite doing all this in the past, I would be booting up, basically going through and doing all the chalices for the sake of the walkthrough then the prep, and then going and doing the chalices again for the actual series. The bosses here are also going to be a complete pushover compared to how experienced you are by now. So, where's my stuff at? Now, stop this. I'm trying to put on some fire paper just to really... There we go. That was being rather annoying. Big ass difference with the fire paper on, which I might actually like put all that on and be like, oh, you know, here's my. Let me set some stuff up here. So I would like this to be bone marrow ash, and then we're going to do fire and bolt, and then lastly I want to have my arcane. Beautiful. Probably the one thing about Chalice Dungeons that are worthwhile is going through all of them. You tend to find a lot of... Oh, wrong way. You can find some decent blood gems down in them. Typically the best blood gems you get from farming the really low layer Chalice Dungeons. And you can find some runes down in them as well. But anyway, so point is, it's a lot of bullshit to go through all of the Chalice Dungeons. Now, there are ways to skip. There are what's known as false dungeons. These are things that folks in the community created, more often than not using save editors. But the way Bloodborne works is it still recognizes them as valid, and you can use these false dungeons to skip a bunch of the content. For example, we are able to essentially create the final, the central Great Illithal dungeon, and actually just create that dungeon and go in and fight it without going and scouring through all the various floors to create it. So we are going to do that for the sake of the walkthrough. If you really want to do the all of the chalices legit, I am going to, hang on, let me see here, through the doorway, up the ladder, through the doorway, make a right, kill the lady. Okay. Had to check my notes for where I'm going. Since we had done all this about 1.5 years ago in the Bloodborne series we did, I'm going to have a link to that part of the playlist pinned as a comment on this video, as well as in the description for this video. This guy's pretty funny. He rolls all around. Roly-poly man. Ow! Roly-poly man, no, don't do it. Damn, Roly-poly man is giving me a... There we go. But yeah, so I'm gonna have that pinned in the description, as well as on this video. And that'll be me going through and doing all of them legit if you want to follow along. It's a lot of bullshit. And to be frank with y'all, as much as I love Bloodborne, I do not have it in me to go through all of the Chalice Dungeons for the sake of prep, and then go through all of the Chalice Dungeons again for the sake of this walkthrough after doing it once, because it is a lot. It wouldn't be that bad if it was just going through something, you know, similar to how the story of Bloodborne is. But it's not. Like, there are times where it's like, okay, you need to, you know, deviate off of, this is the next dungeon you need, but to even go in this dungeon, you're going to need to make this dungeon to get the material, but to get that material that you need to go to this dungeon first. And that's just, it's a lot of extra bullshit to get that stuff done, you know? The kind of bullshit I'm not a fan of. So we're going to be using false dungeons to get you the weapon from the Chalice Dungeons that you need, as well as take you to the final boss in the Chalice Dungeons. There are some cool bosses. You'll be able to experience most of them doing the false dungeons that we're going to create. I think it is worth noting that the false dungeons are only possible if you have PSN. A big part of the Chalice Dungeons, the way they work is, Chalice Dungeons were largely meant to be an online element as well, and the idea is that you can share Chalice Dungeons with other players. So if you found a good one, almost like, you know, like a roguelike seed, you could share that to other people and they could experience it. But what's interesting is that when you create a Chalice Dungeon that somebody else found, it doesn't cost any materials. So while you would typically need to go through and farm all of this bullshit to create the final dungeon that has the final boss, if you are doing a chalice that somebody else has created already, you can just jump in and do it for free. So basically what this means is that if you have access to PSN, even if it's just a free demo, you know, you have an infinitely greater advantage over somebody who doesn't, because you're going to be able to just enter in that code and jump into the dungeon without needing to farm all the crazy rare mats. So another big reason why we're doing that. It saves a tremendous amount of time. Alright, so layer 3, this is actually kind of a real more extended out layer here. This one I'm actually gonna have to pay attention to my notes instead of just rambling on about how I hate chalices and we're skipping them. Like I said, if you want to do it the legit way, I'm gonna link to that playlist. I just personally, I can't bring myself to do it again after all we've already done. So if you want in this one, you can bring this guy along. I don't think it's going to be necessary. We're largely going to be just kind of speeding through things, but I did want to point it out. So anyway, we are going to drop down. We're going to go to the right and climb up top of this thing. First thing we're doing here is killing the bell lady. That'll get rid of all of these guys. There she is. Her dead. All of them, just, well, most of them fall over. Like all this ritual blood that we're finding, this is stuff that we need to have for the Chalice Dungeons. Well, you can operate this and shoot a cannonball. It's this guy trying to hit you, but yeah, we walked right past that. So now we killed the bell lady, and then we're gonna take the path and open the gate. Just down here. And then we want to go this room right here in the corner. This is our big man and the activate this. Okay, we're gonna go this way and up the ladder. That lady likes to appear behind you and stab you. If we go straight here, we can pick up a tomb mold in this area. And we can run back this way and take a shortcut. This will bring it back up. You can climb on this and take it down. A lot of chalice rooms will also have side rooms. Side rooms typically contain treasures. And the preset ones like this chalice dungeon is going to be identical for everyone that does it. So going through this side room here, this is going to have a tomb mold if we just go straight through it here. But they can be a variety of things. You might find alternate versions of weapons, either lost or uncanny, which the main difference with that is, so how this has like a gem, and an arc for the slots. You know, you can see there, gem, arc. Some weapons have triangle slots, some have more gem slots. The lost and uncanny versions of weapons, basically, they just have, they have alternate gem layouts. So, if you want to make a weapon that does a lot of fire damage, finding one that has multiple instances of kind of the arc gem would be really useful, because the arc gems have, you're going to find more fire runes. So basically, in this stuff, this is something that you would just want to pull up on the wiki, you know, like if there's a particular weapon you want, you would type in, you know, Ludwig Lost or Ludwig Uncanny, and then somebody will give you a seed, and then you can jump into that portion of the dungeon and go and get that weapon. You can also find little merchants in these little side areas. One of the only weapon that you don't get in the main game, the Beast Claw, that's found in a side area. So there's all kinds of stuff you can find in them. But basically, when you add in the side areas and all the layers, the Chalice Dungeons just, they end up getting quite lengthy, you know? That's all it is. They get quite lengthy, and for somebody that's already done them once, they're quite bothersome. I think this is Watchdogs. Yes, it is. Alright, we're actually gonna warp away. Yeah, put me in it. Okay. You know, reawake them real fast. So compared to the other bosses that were basically a joke, this one is an actual real boss fight here. So before we jump into this, we're going to our hunter's dream. We're gonna basically get more vials, get more bullets, all that good stuff. So this boss uses a lot of fire damage. Wow, I can't believe I burned through all my vials. Oh, there we go. Jesus, barely enough to get me a 20. You're gonna want fire resist for this, so the Charred Hunter. There's no Charred Hunter hat, but you can just kind of scroll through and see what has the best fire defense. You know, we got 60 right there. We also got 60 there if you want to go for the church hat. This actually don't look too bad. Kind of like my fashion. So yeah, this guy he does a lot of fire damage. He's also immune to fire damage himself. Ideally, you want to focus hitting his head. If you hit his head enough, you should be able to get a visceral attack on him. You want to dodge the charges that he does here. If he charges you, the charge will basically just bowl right over you and do a lot of damage. And the only other thing... Ooh, my 10.5. Beautiful. Probably the biggest thing here is this is honestly a fight where you just have to play smart. Like, that's all it really is. You have to play smart and just, you know, be careful about how you're fighting. So, like, yeah, see the fire blood? If I had a gem imprint that had, you know, waning, and then something else, I could put in multiple fire things. That's kind of what I was talking about with the lost and uncanny versions of weapons. There's also a lot of really cool stuff you can do with that. For example, the run that we did, the one that I'm actually going to have linked in this episode, we used a Chalice dungeon very close to the start of the game, and it led us to an uncanny version of the Burial Blade. So even though you typically couldn't get the Burial Blade until the very, very end of Bloodborne when you'd fight the final boss, through using Chalice Dungeons, we were able to snatch one on up pretty early. So there's actually some cool stuff you can do with them like that. You know, and getting runes and whatnot is pretty nice, but just from the perspective of, like, going all the way through all of the Chalice Dungeons just to get to the Pthumerian Queen, it is rather bothersome, and it takes quite a long time. So, as I mentioned, this guy is immune to fire. He doesn't really have any innate weaknesses. He is slightly more resistant to blunt and to arcane damage. If you're gonna do anything here, basically he's 160 to arcane and electricity. He's immune to fire. And blunt, he has more resistance to blunt than he does to physical or thrust. So basically what I'm getting at here is you could put either, you could do either bolt paper, or you could use the empty phantasm shell. Either or is going to work here just to have some extra damage on your weapon, but it's not going to make a big difference. This is very much the type of fight where it's about you just playing the game smart. Another fight kind of like Amygdala 2, where you want to be very careful about your health pool, because it's very easy for this guy to do a lot of damage very quickly. and you won't notice it coming. This is going so much better than the walkthrough prep. The walkthrough prep, our weapon was blunt, so we weren't getting all that much damage, but... a big sword is tearing him up. Big hits to the head. Alright, and let's see, we got the central Pthumeru Chalice, which with that we could go into the next area. Now there are some cool bosses down in the Chalice Dungeons. I would be remiss without mentioning that. Doing the skip that we're going to do, you will get to fight a couple of those. There are a couple that are rehashed bosses as well. Just to give a quick idea of what you could expect in Chalice Dungeons. So we saw 3 of them right here. We have the Undead Giant, we have the Watchers, and then the Watchdog. There's the Beast-Possessed Soul, which we'll actually get to fight him with one of the skips we're doing. There is the Keeper of the Old Lords, which is like a hunter. It's a hunter fight. But we're actually going to fight him and Pthumerian Descendant. We have to fight both of them on our way to the final boss. There's Bloodletting Beast, which is the guy that we sent to the Yusofka's clinic. There's a couple throwaway bosses, like literally a boar and a brain sucker as a boss down here, so those ones are kind of dookie. Beyond that, let's see, the Lauren Dark Beast is pretty cool, but it's basically just Parl. Lauren Silver Beast is like the enemies that we fight in the Nightmare Frontier. There's the Pthumerian Elder. He's kind of cool. He's going through Hinterland tombs, but Abhorrent and Bloodletting are you know, 2 sides of the same coin. But you can fight those. If we hadn't sent that guy to Yusofka and had actually tried to attack him, that's really the only thing, I think, now that I'm thinking about it, because we're going to fight most of the bosses on our way down to the Pthumerian Queen. So the only one that you're not really getting a chance to fight in the regular story would be Bloodletting or Abhorrent Beast, which is that NPC anyway. So you can get that. Just, you know, fight him on New Game Plus. He's kind of a hard fight on New Game. But with all of that done, let me level up real fast and then talk about where you could go from here. Oh my god. Well, only 3,000. I thought, never mind. I read 30,000. So, a couple things. This is a short ritual chalice. We can't do that right now. But as you can see here, now we could jump back in. So, if we jumped into layer 3 heart, we could re-go through this challenge and do more stuff. If you remove, it's going to completely expunge the chalice and erase all progress. But so if you want to do things the old-fashioned way, now you go Chalice Ritual. We have a Root Chalice, and we have Central Pthumeru Chalice. But as you can see, this, we are missing Ritual Blood 2. So to get Ritual Blood 2, we could go back in here, and we could jump down to layer 2. We picked up some Ritual Blood 2 from the fat guy there. We picked it up from the bad guy there. And basically, you're just going to be going through and repeating shit until you get the materials that you need to create a Central Pthumeru Chalice. Alternatively, you could do a Pthumeru Root Chalice. We need Ritual Blood 1 to do that, which we could actually buy over here. So, if you wanted, you could go here, buy the Ritual Blood 1, create the Root Chalice, and then get the materials that you need to dive into Central Pthumeru. But so you kind of get the gist. There's a lot of farming and repetition and going through these, and personally I just think they get all kind of samey towards the end. So we are going to be using false glyphs to, and just to give an idea on how that works, if we have to go into online mode, but we would go here, search for a chalice glyph, and we'd be able to open up a chalice. But those 2 chalices that we're going to open, they are much harder than where we're at right now. In fact, they're going to be close to the end of the game that we're going to be doing them. So if you want to continue on, feel free to. You can follow the playlist that I have in the comments, but I personally, especially if it's a secondary playthrough, like you're just going for plat, nah man, I'm not about that life. But either way, we are wrapping up. Next episode, we have Yargul the Unseen Village, and then into Yargul Chapel, and then we're very much kind of on our path towards the end of the game. So stay tuned, and I will catch you all soon enough as we continue.